What kind of person calls the cops on someone just for moving into their own home? I'd barely parked the U-Haul in front of my new farm, the dust still settling on the gravel drive, when HOA Karen stormed out of her pristine suburban house across the road, her voice slicing through the quiet like a chainsaw. "You can't park that monstrosity here," she bellowed, her face flushed, her bulk swaying as she marched toward me. I'd just left a decade of covert operations, trading danger for the dream of a quiet life, growing tomatoes and raising chickens. But there she was, my new neighbor, already turning my fresh start into a battlefield. I set down a box of books, my hands steady from years of handling worse threats, and met her glare. "Ma'am, this is my property," I said, calm as a still pond. Her eyes narrowed, and she whipped out her phone, dialing 911 like she was calling in an airstrike. "We'll see about that," she spat, her voice dripping with triumph. The farm was my sanctuary, a 10-acre slice of rolling hills and wildflowers I'd bought sight unseen after years of saving. I'd imagined mornings with coffee on the porch, not a screaming match with a woman who looked like she'd bully a tornado into submission. HOA Karen, as the locals later called her, was the self-appointed queen of the neighborhood, a place where the suburbs bled into rural life. Her house, with its manicured lawn and HOA-approved mailbox, sat like a fortress of conformity across from my ramshackle barn. She'd been watching me unload for all of 10 minutes before deciding I was a threat to her perfect world. "This isn't a junkyard," she shouted, gesturing at my beat-up truck and the stack of crates holding my life's possessions. I tried reasoning big mistake. "I'm just moving in," I said, pointing to the deed in my hand. She scoffed, her chins quivering. "That land's been empty for years. You don't belong here." The sheriff's deputy arrived within minutes, his cruiser kicking up more dust. He was young, probably fresh out of training, his hand resting uneasily on his belt. "What's the problem, ma'am?" he asked, glancing between us. HOA Karen launched into a tirade, claiming my truck was an eyesore, that I was trespassing, that I was probably some drifter squatting on abandoned land. I stood there, arms crossed, letting her dig her own grave. The deputy turned to me, his brow furrowed. "Sir, you got ID or proof of ownership?" I nodded, reaching into my jacket. But before I pulled out the deed, I caught HOA Karen's smirk, like she'd already won. Something in me snapped, not anger, but the quiet resolve I'd honed in darker days. I wasn't just some guy moving to a farm. I was Ethan Cole, retired federal agent, and I'd faced worse than a loudmouth with a vendetta. I handed the deputy my driver's license and the deed, but I held back the badge for now. Let her think she had the upper hand. The deputy scanned the documents, his expression softening. "Looks legit," he muttered. HOA Karen's face twisted, her voice climbing an octave. "Check again." "He's lying. This land belongs to the community." The deputy sighed, clearly used to her theatrics. But she wasn't done. She stepped closer, jabbing a finger at me. "I know your type. You'll ruin this place with your trash and your noise." That's when I noticed two neighbors peeking from their porch, drawn by the commotion but too scared to intervene. HOA Karen ruled this street like a dictator, and I was the first to challenge her reign. Then came the twist I didn't see coming. As she ranted, a frail older woman shuffled out from the house next to HOA Karen's. Her hands trembled as she clutched a photo, her eyes wide with something like hope. "Is that Ethan?" she whispered, loud enough for me to hear. I froze. I didn't know her, but her voice carried a weight that hit me like a punch. HOA Karen whirled on her. Mrs. Larson, go back inside. This doesn't concern you. But the old woman ignored her. Stepping closer, her gaze locked on me. You're Maggie's boy, aren't you? My heart thudded. Maggie was my mother. Gone 5 years now. How did this stranger know her? The deputy raised an eyebrow. And even HOA Karen faltered, sensing the shift. Mrs. Larson's voice cracked as she held up the photo, a faded picture of my mother, young and laughing, standing on this very farm. This was her land. She said softly. She used to talk about you. How you'd come back one day. I swallowed hard, the weight of her words sinking in. My mother had grown up here, left when she married, and never told me she'd kept the deed in her name until it passed to me. HOA Karen's mouth opened, then closed, her certainty crumbling. The deputy handed back my papers, his tone firm. Sir, you're good here. But I wasn't listening. My eyes were on Mrs. Larson, who smiled through tears. Welcome home, Ethan. HOA Karen wasn't one to back down, though. She doubled down, her voice shrill as she demanded the deputy arrest me for forging documents. That's when I'd had enough. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my old federal agent badge, the silver glinting in the fading light. Ma'am, I said, my voice low but carrying the weight of a decade in the field. You might want to rethink your accusations. Her eyes locked on the badge, and for the first time, she froze. The deputy straightened, his demeanor shifting from small-town cop to professional respect. Federal agent, he asked. Retired, I said, pocketing the badge. But I still know a thing or two about the law. The air changed, like the moment before a storm breaks. HOA Karen's face drained of color, her bluster replaced by a stammer. I didn't know, she managed, stepping back. The deputy tipped his hat to me, then turned to her. Ma'am, I suggest you let Mr. Cole settle in. She stood there, deflated, as the neighbors whispered and Mrs. Larson clutched her photo tighter. I could have pressed the issue, maybe filed a complaint for harassment. But that wasn't why I'd come here. I wanted peace, not war. I nodded to the deputy, then to Mrs. Larson, who gave me a look that said she'd tell me more later. As the cruiser pulled away, HOA Karen retreated to her house, her kingdom shaken but not yet fallen. The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of chickens clucking outside. The farm was rough, overgrown fields, a sagging porch, but it felt like mine in a way nothing ever had. I spent the day unloading boxes, ignoring the occasional glare from HOA Karen's window. But the real confrontation was coming, and I knew it. She wasn't the type to let a loss slide. By noon, she was back, this time with a clipboard and a smug grin. I've called an emergency HOA meeting, she announced, standing at my gate like she owned it. Your property violates at least 6 bylaws. You'll be fined, or we'll seize the land. I leaned against the porch railing, my badge tucked away, but its weight still with me. There is no HOA out here, I said. This is unincorporated land. Her smile faltered, but she pressed on. We'll see about that. That evening, the so-called HOA meeting took place in her backyard, a gathering of 5 nervous neighbors under her glare. I showed up uninvited, deed in hand, ready to end this. HOA Karen stood at the head of the group, reading off her list of violations. My truck, my unpacked crates, even the wildflowers she called weeds. The neighbors nodded along, too intimidated to argue. Then I stepped forward, my voice cutting through her monologue. Let's clear this up. This land isn't under your jurisdiction. Never was. I held up the deed, then a county map I'd pulled that morning, showing my property line well outside her HOA's reach. The neighbors murmured, and one, a quiet man named Tom, spoke up. She told us the HOA covered everything up to the creek. HOA Karen's face reddened. That's not true, she snapped, but the cracks in her control were showing. I turned to the group, my tone steady but firm. She's been bullying you all into thinking she runs this whole area. Check your own deeds. You'll see. The neighbors exchanged glances, doubt creeping in. That's when Mrs. Larson, who'd slipped into the meeting unnoticed, stood up. HOA, you've been lying for years, she said, her voice stronger now. You told me I couldn't plant roses because of your rules. You scared my husband into paying fines we couldn't afford. The group went silent, the weight of her words sinking in. HOA Karen's clipboard trembled in her hands. The confrontation peaked when Tom, emboldened, pulled out his phone and showed a copy of his own deed, confirming my claim. One by one, the neighbors started asking questions, their fear giving way to anger. HOA Karen tried to shout them down, but her voice cracked, her authority unraveling. You can't do this, she yelled, but no one was listening anymore. Mrs. Larson stepped forward, her photo of my mother in hand. This land was Maggie's, and now it's Ethan's. You don't get to control it. HOA. The neighbors nodded, and for the first time, I saw something like hope in their eyes. Her empire collapsed in that moment. HOA Karen stood alone, her clipboard useless, her threats empty. The neighbors dispersed, promising to check their deeds and meet again without her. She didn't say a word as she stormed back into her house, the door slamming behind her. I didn't feel triumph, just relief. The farm was mine. But more than that, the truth had set something free in this little corner of the world. Mrs. Larson stayed behind, telling me stories of my mother's summers here, how she dreamed of me returning. Each word felt like a root sinking deeper into this land, tying me to it in ways I hadn't expected. Weeks later, the farm was coming to life. I'd planted the first seeds, fixed the porch, and even helped Tom tear down an old HOA compliance sign HOA Karen had nailed to his fence. The neighbors started dropping by, no longer afraid, bringing pies or offering to help with the barn. Mrs. Larson became a regular, her stories painting a picture of a community that could thrive without fear. HOA Karen's house went quiet, her blinds drawn, her reign over. I heard she'd put her place up for sale, unable to face the people she'd tried to control. Standing on my porch one evening, watching the sunset paint the fields gold, I thought about the badge in my drawer. It had stopped her in her tracks, but it was the truth about the land, about my mother, about this place that really won. I'd come here for peace, but I'd found something better, a home, a history, and a chance to help others find their courage. The wildflowers swayed in the breeze, and I smiled, knowing I was exactly where I was meant to be.